Hello, and welcome to Freshwaves. I'm your host, Bren Masson. Today, I bring you part 2 of the story of Ben. It's not a happy story, and the ending is not what we had hoped for when Ben went missing in 2019. It's the story of a troubled young man. It's the story of a mother's love. It's Kim's story, and it's Ben's story. And today, Kim will tell you the story of Ben.
Do you want me to start right from the beginning of
I think so. For those who haven't heard before, it's best if we start at the beginning.
Okay, so Ben, my son, I'm not going to sugarcoat it or anything. He had a lot of issues. He had a drug addiction with some high test drugs. And for lots of times, we were having tried to get him counseling, trying to get him help. But he would get better for a short period of time, then he'd get back into the drugs. And we watched him spiral down. And this was back in 2019. Constant lies, constant stealing from us, causing lots of trouble with the family. But he had a place he was living in Ajax. He had a job. He has 2 children, but they were originally with their mother, and then they ended up staying with us for a while. And everything started to escalate down, and it was because of his drug use. And he went missing. And he went missing probably around the 1st of July of 2019. And when I couldn't get a hold of him for over a week, and I thought I knew where he was, I ended up filing a missing persons report. And from then on, it was a search for Ben. And we had a lot of help. We had not only with friends and family that helped me pound the pavement, hanging up posters, going into tent cities, going into shelters, missions, etc. But we had a group called the Guardian of Our Missing Angels that took on his search, and they helped me immensely getting the word out through social media. They came and did searches down in Oshawa and Pickering, because that's where he was last seen. And we had a lot of people give us leads where they thought they'd seen him, or they'd heard where he was, and we'd go and check it out. But again, there was nothing positive. Even as far as New Brunswick, even as far as Calgary, people were thinking they saw him there, but it wasn't. And we kept on the search. Every week I would do Facebook postings on, please keep looking, please, if you see anything, hear of him, let us know. Constantly, the police helped us, but to an extent. They could only do so much. And then they would do some announcements down in the Pickering area as well, through the newspapers, through the radio station down there as well, to try and keep a search open. But then COVID hit, and everything kind of stopped, and that was around the 1st of March of last year, and we still hadn't found him. And on March 29th, 2020, I got a knock on the door at 8:30 at night, and it was the police. And even when they knocked on the door, because they couldn't even have them in because of COVID, I had to go out on the front doorstep. I looked at the police officer, and I was like, I didn't even clue in at that point that it could possibly be about Ben. I thought maybe my store had been broken into, or something had happened. And then right beside him was the detective, Lawrence Burns, who was the detective that did Ben's case right from the beginning. And he said, Kim, we have to talk. And I went, oh, this is not good news, is it? And he says, no. And they had found Ben in a wooded area just north of Uxbridge. and Ben had taken his life. So
Oh, I'm so
that
sorry, Kim. I mean, we did the show. We did two shows actually. We
yeah,
really we
we
wanted to
did it
find
2
him
times.
so badly, all of
I,
us, but
I
you
know,
in particular.
yes, and I knew that even if we found him, that it was still going to be a struggle with him, but we were going to try and get him into rehab away from everything, and we were going to, try and get him better. I mean, that's all a mother wants, right?
Yep. Yep.
Mm. Anyway, from there, from there, it ended up being that there was a neighbor, and it was a neighbor of a farm that found him, and I think that COVID had a lot to do with it. That people were at home, people were just out for walks, people, um, were going up, cleaning up properties and doing stuff because they were so housebound. And that's how he was found. Is somebody was out cleaning up garbage in an area, and they found him. And it was not even a really high wooded area. It was probably, if we'd really, really looked hard in that area right from the road, we might have even been able to see him. He was that close to, I don't know. I don't know how it took so long to find him, but it did. It did.
Hiding in
And
plain sight.
yeah. And because of the amount of decay that his body had been through, I mean, forensics always want scientific proof. Ben was not one for tattoos or piercings or anything like that. And there was no DNA on file with the police for him or anything like that. But he had been in trouble with the police in his younger years, and they had taken fingerprints. So, with the amount of decay and everything, they weren't able to pull a fingerprint, and so they had tried. Um, they tried to rehydrate the skin, so they had put his hands in some sort of a solution that hopefully the skin will absorb the solution and puff back up so that they could try and get a print. And that can take up to 6 weeks, I believe they told me. They might have to hydrate his hands for that. And then if that all failed, his sister, who is his twin, was going to have to go in and have her DNA tested. And they were able to pull some DNA from his bones and everything. And they would try and do a match. And that could take up to 6 months. And I went, oh my goodness, like we all knew it was Ben. His backpack was there, his ID was on him and everything, but they they need science.
Mm.
You could put somebody's ID on anybody, and but they had to have the scientific proof. So we were very lucky in the fact that they were able to lift a print from his finger. And about 2 weeks after they had found him, we were able to have his cremation. We were only allowed to have 5 people because that's when COVID was. And there was 5 of us that went for his cremation. And then after that, we had his burial. But I'm still, 1 year later, going to try and have a celebration of life for Ben because there's so many people that want to come. And we're talking like a couple hundred people that want to come to his celebration of life. And until COVID allows us to do that, I will be having one once they lift the restrictions. So that that will be good. That will be nice to thank everybody and see everybody.
Yeah. Well, I'm so, so, so sorry that this is the outcome. We'd all hoped that we could do a show and we'd all be doing the happy dance and Ben would be on the show with us because we would
I,
just
I
find him one day.
well, that was all everybody's wish, and I mean everybody. That's not just myself as a family, but I like a whole community not only the community that I live in, because I live in Zephyr, north of Stouffville, but the community, my business community. Um, I mean, the outreach of help I had and the concerns and people I didn't know would stop me on the street and give me a hug, and that was, of course, prior to COVID. And it was just very overwhelming, and it was such a warm feeling that Stova really does step up and really looks after the people, and especially the people they care about. And it was really heartwarming to know that so many people cared, and so not that I say anything good can come out of this, because nothing ever good comes out of a suicide and out of somebody that has a mental illness and stuff. But I have learned a great deal, not only through counseling, but just my own self-awareness, that it's really important to be kind, be really kind to people, because you don't know what they're going through.
Mm-hmm.
And the person beside you can just be struggling with something, and it's so easy to be judgmental, and I'm guilty of that, as so are so many other people. But I'm trying not to be judgmental anymore, and just say, do you need something? Can I help you with something? Because maybe they just need somebody to care or somebody to talk to them, and that's what I would like everybody to do. And just from my own experience, this is what I've learned. It's not that I wasn't kind to my son, but mental illness is so out there, and I really believe that it's affecting so many people. And even with COVID being the way it is right now, there's so many people that are struggling with mental illness, and all you need to do is just be a little bit kind. So
Yeah. Now,
not that,
when we were on the show the first time, I know that you'd had some struggles with Ben with his addictions.
yeah.
And through that, you got all kinds of different advice. And I recall us having a conversation about what tough love looks like sometimes. And
Yeah,
it seems like you tried everything, honestly, everything.
I did. I did try. As I said, I went to counseling, and I tried supporting him through everything, but then I felt I was becoming an enabler, and then a tough love, but I never gave up on him, and I think he always knew that. But honestly, near the end, um, I think he felt that I did give up on him. So I don't know whether tough love to an extreme is always the answer. Um, I mean, I certainly don't blame myself for this or anything, but I I think about it quite often. If I'd done something different, would there have been a different outcome? I don't know, and there's so many unknowns. But tough love does work in a lot of cases, but sometimes it doesn't. So
Mm-hmm.
I can't recommend any type of treatment for an addict. I mean, nobody knows their child better than a parent, but sometimes you just are grasping at straws, and you just have to, you just don't know what else to do.
As a parent, you know your child when they're not using, and sometimes they're a different person when they are using.
Oh, definitely. Oh, it was a night and day with Ben, with not using and with using. And it wasn't so much the using, it's coming down from the using. And that was when he was on his high, he was actually tolerable. But when he was coming down and his body was craving more and he couldn't get it, he was a total opposite, like a Jekyll and Hyde. And sometimes it was unbearable. So, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So my heart does go out for anybody that has to deal with an addict. It's very, very difficult.
It is. And this was a long time struggle. It didn't happen just in a couple of years. This had been going on for a while, hadn't it? His
Oh,
addiction problems?
years. Yeah. As a teenager at school, he was started. And like he was he was 32 when they found him. So it had been gone. And I can't say they were all bad years. There certainly weren't all bad years or anything, because Ben would do really well and then Ben would fall down again and go back, and then it would be tough, and then he would get better. But it hadn't been good for a long time with Ben. But he was 30 years old, and really at 30 years old, there'd been, I'd say, a good 10 years, maybe 12 years of me struggling, trying to get him help, trying to put him into rehab twice. And at 30 years old, you have to decide yourself whether you want to get better or not. And sometimes I always thought, well, when he hits rock bottom, he's got nowhere else to look than up, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not always the case. And this time it wasn't the case, because then they give up.
But he had some rather unfortunate circumstances prior to his disappearance.
As far as losing his job.
Yeah, those kinds of things.
His children. He had a relationship, and it wasn't a good relationship. And they ended up splitting up. And he had visiting rights with his children through CAS. And he was even messing that up. So they decided not to the point of never taking away visits from his children, but just giving a break. And he needed to get himself some help, get a little bit of help, and then get back on track. And then they would redo the visits and everything. So he lost his job. He lost his place of where he was living. And he lost his children, and all within a week.
Oh my goodness!
And at one point he left where he was living because he got kicked out because he hadn't paid his rent, and the police escorted him out of that. It wasn't even a good scene, but he left with a suitcase, which was later found and turned into the police. And he called the police that night and said he felt suicidal. He wanted to jump off a bridge. And the police took him to the Ajax Pickering Hospital. And I was always under the assumption that they keep you for 72 hours under watch when you do that.
Yeah.
And he was out within 24 hours.
What?
Because the doctor that saw him didn't feel he was any danger to himself. And I figured it was either the next day or the following day that he probably took his life.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Now, you had seen him at the bank. There was bank surveillance footage of the bank machine.
Yes. The last time I spoke to Ben was on July the 11th. And they said that when I spoke to Ben July 11th, I had given him money to get back to Oshawa. He was actually in Uxbridge. And anyway, he told me he was going to go down to Oshawa to get into the men's shelter down there. So I'd given him money to get the bus and some extra money for himself. But they said that the police got the report from his bank down in Ajax that he went in and took out his last bit of money. And the date that they told him was July 12th. But I really myself question that. I have a feeling that was on July 11th, the last day he spoke to me, because he took out the last money he had, which was $3 in Ajax, came up to Uxbridge, and then he was trying to hook up with some people in Uxbridge that he knew to stay there, which wasn't working out. Nobody was taking him in. And then he called me for money to go down to Oshawa. I don't believe he actually left Uxbridge. Mm-hmm. So I don't think the date was correct. I think it was actually on the 11th. I don't think he would go from Uxbridge all the way down to Ajax. Then he ended up being north of Uxbridge when they found him. Like, it just didn't make sense to me, but that's my theory, so yeah. So they had pictures of him down in Ajax taking out his last money. They also had pictures of him in Uxbridge when I transferred him the money. He transferred him the money. He went into the bank in Uxbridge and took the money out. And that was the last. That's the last.
Now, you knew that he had asked you for money before. This wasn't anything new.
Constantly. I'm a daily occurrence, he'd ask. And it was I'd have to shut my phone off. And then he would phone constantly. 90 times in one day he called me. Yeah. And that was the worst. But when he wants something, he was relentless trying to get. And he'd always thought I'd cave. And normally I did. But then I stopped caving at the end. And I wouldn't give him any. So.
But on that last time, you did.
I gave him because he come up to. The reason why I gave him money is that he was in Uxbridge, and he dropped into his grandmother's, which is my mother, and she's 85 years old, and I didn't want him to ask her for money. Like, I was afraid he was going to ask her for money or take something, to get money. And so I did give him money so that he would not ask her,
Right.
You don't ask your grandmother, you don't ask an 85-year-old for money,
right.
Which she probably would have said no anyway, because she's tough as nails. I could learn a lot from her. So anyway, but that's why I ended up giving him the money.
Well, you know what? It's nice that you did.
Yes. Yeah, I think. But he made the choice of doing other things with his money and then putting it to good use, like taking the bus down to the shelter, going into the shelter and getting some help, because all shelters will help you with any addiction. So, but anyway.
And on that particular day, he just didn't make it down to the shelter to get the help that he needed.
No. I don't think he went. And where he found, like if he walked from Uxbridge north, he was found at Davis Drive in Durham Road 1. And if he kept walking up there, he would have been close to where we live. And I have a feeling he was trying to walk home, but he gave up. So he had no phone minutes or anything. But he walked right by a hospital.
Oh, good.
Well, he could have gone into Uxbridge Hospital and got help, but he didn't. So.
Well, it's absolutely heartbreaking. My heart goes out to you.
Thank you.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about who Ben was and who you've become now in Ben's absence. You're listening to Fresh Waves. I'm your host, Bren Masson. We'll return with Kim Everson right after this quick break. Stay tuned. Hi, this is Bren Masson, host of Fresh Waves. Fresh Waves brings you awareness, compassion, understanding, respect, and discovery in the stories of people's lives. Enhance your day with creativity and wonderment on Fresh Waves. Fresh Waves can be heard every day, anytime you like, at freshwaves.ca. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Fresh Waves Radio, and listen every Saturday morning at 7 a.m. on 102.9 whistlefm.com. Fresh Waves, it really is fresh. We're back on Fresh Waves. I'm your host, Bren Masson, and this morning we're talking with Kim Everson about her son, Ben. Ben was an addict from his teenage years. He was in and out of trouble, but he was Kim's son, and she helped as much as she could, taking counseling and classes and trying to figure out how to help Ben. And then after a series of unfortunate events, losing his job, his place that he lived in, and his kids, he took his own life last year. A year ago, from the taping of this show, actually. He was found just north of Uxbridge. Kim, who was
Yes.
Ben? Who was he?
He was actually a great person, and he had so much potential to be so much more than he actually was. But when he was growing up, he was such an easygoing, fun, jokester type kid, well liked at school, had a really good friend base. Wasn't that great at school, but was on sports teams. And I used to say, I'm never going to have to worry about that kid. He's got it all, like he's got it,
Mm-hmm.
But then things changed, and especially with school and not doing well in school and not really wanting to keep doing the sports. Um, yeah, I remember a principal saying to me at school one time, said, he can go one way or he can go the other way, Kim. He can really go into sports or really get involved in stuff like that, which we tried to keep him into sports, or he can go the other way. And unfortunately, he went the other way. I mean, you can't make them join the teams. You can't make them do that, all the things. But we tried, and so when he got into high school, it's a lot easier to become involved with drugs than in the early years, and that's what he did. So he changed. He changed. Drugs change a person. They change your moods. They change your actions. They change everything. And when somebody in your family has an addiction, it changes everybody in the family. It's not their problem. It's our problem. And we all suffer because of Ben's addiction, and we all tried to help him too. But him as a person, he still had a very good sense of humor, and he was a jokester, and people liked him. When Ben was not on drugs, Ben was a really good person. And I remember going down to Ajax one time, and I took him grocery shopping. And when we were driving the car, he yelled to pull over. And I thought, oh my goodness, what did I run over? Did I,
Hmm.
hit something? What happened? And he jumped out of the car and he ran across the road. And there was a man carrying his garbage out. Sorry, Brenda.
It's okay.
To the side of the road, and it was a really elderly gentleman, and he was having a lot of trouble getting his garbage to the road, and one of the bags broke, and he ran across the road and helped the man, and just picked up the garbage, got him a new bag for the broken garbage, and I'm just watching from the car, and I'm looking at him like, and this man is staring at him like he couldn't believe that he'd done this for him. And then when Ben gets back in the car, I just looked at him and went like, who are you? Because like up to this point, we were having so much trouble with you, and it just made me feel that this is why I never gave up on him, because I would see glimmers of hope. And that's what I always hoped, that he showed still good morals, that I raised him to be a good boy,
Mm-hmm.
and I saw that. And I saw that right up to the end. There was always something that would bring me back. And every day I used to get up and go, today's the day. Today's the day. He's going to get some help. He's going to get better. Things are going to turn around. And usually by noon, I was like, okay, maybe not today then, So, and but I never gave up hope. But it was really hard at the end. It just got so bad with him. It was hard not to give up hope. And then when he went missing, all I had was hope.
Right. Well, up until the time he went missing, that last little bit was really tumultuous. When things were all falling apart around him, it must have been really hard for you, and obviously extremely hard for him.
Oh yeah, for him it must have been terrible. I mean, an addiction is just, I don't understand how they feel, because I've never been an addict like that myself, so I don't understand the craving and from what I spoke to people with counseling and stuff, that they're actually in more pain when they do crave than they are in any. So sometimes when it gets to the point where they're thinking of taking their life, death is a relief, from all the pain that they've been suffering. Mm-hmm. So I believe that's what he was going through at the end, is that it was just so painful for him. And not being able to get any more drugs or anything like that must have been very, very hard on him. So, and for anybody to make the decision to take your own life, it has to be so difficult. So,
yeah. So, Kim, who have you become now? You were for so long the mother of an addict and the mother of another child who needs your attention just as much as the child who's given you problems. And then you were the mother who was on a mission to find her missing son. And that was a whole year. That's a long time. And I realized the stress that you were under when we had the show. And then he was found, and the outcome wasn't the outcome that you were looking for. Who have you become now?
I'd like to say that it's made me stronger, but it really hasn't. I'm aware. I'm aware of things a lot more with people and caring. I try to be more caring, but it's taken a toll on me, and on top of my family as well. But I've been through a lot. I could write a book, and maybe a few books, or maybe bestsellers. I don't know, but I'm still the same person, but I lost my happy, and this is my goal now, is to get my happy back, and because it changed me. It changed me. It changed, well, with Ben being so sick with his addiction, it changed me a lot. I used to be the life of the party, fun going and everything, and I became serious and maybe more short-tempered. I don't know, through it all. But now that Ben's gone, I'd say 2020 was the worst year of my life, and it had nothing to do with COVID. But I need to find my happy again, and that's my goal now, to find my happy. So, and I hope my son is at peace. He has to be at peace. See, I'm sure he has no more demons, nothing. I hope he's found his happiness. So
yeah,
I need to find mine. Now I need to find mine. So.
Now, it has such a profound effect on the family, and he was a twin. How did his twin take this?
She's struggling, and I mean, she has good times and bad times, and I'm sure her birthday is always, which is coming up in April, will be difficult for her. It was last year, and everything that we want to go to the graveside when it's Ben's birthday, we have to remember it's also her birthday as well, and that's a happy occasion, not and go see Ben on his birthday when it's not so happy, and she misses him. But we are very close with his children, his son and his daughter, and we find a lot of happiness with them. And so even though Ben's not with us, we do see glimmers of Ben and his children, and she's very good with those kids. So I think that's where she's channeled her feelings, is through her niece and nephew. That brings her happiness.
Yeah, you're very fortunate to have those two kids.
Oh, absolutely. They're wonderful kids.
So going forward, I mean, you had a lot of help and a lot of support from Guardians of Our Missing Angels. And will you continue to be involved with that organization, do you think?
I'm still very close with Chris and Renee and a lot of the people that were on the ground looking for Ben and that came out on searches. We're still we still talk. We still send messages. Yeah, so I will. I mean, I follow them, so I share all the posts about other people that have gone missing. Like when that girl Holly was missing in Hamilton. I don't know whether you remember that one.
Yes, I do.
Yes. Um, they asked me if I would talk to the mother, and I said, "Do you think that really that's a good idea?" Another mother talking to the mother and said, "Well, you're the strongest mother we know." And I thought, uh, not always the case, but I did talk to her. So if they reach out and they ask me for any help at all with anything, I'm always there to help them. And but they're not doing any ground searches right now because of COVID for people. So they're doing all their searches through social media right now. So, but if they need any help, yeah, I'll definitely help. They were such a tremendous help for me, and I mean such a tremendous help. Not only trying to find Ben, but as a support for me as well. It was unbelievable. But
Mm-hmm.
I have since the passing of Ben gone and got some counseling through the Bereaved Families of Ontario,
Mm-hmm.
and that's another group that has been a tremendous support as well to me. So that's another group. So this is why it's so important for me to have a celebration of life, which I wanted right from the beginning to have, to really thank everybody for everything they did. So
Yeah, it really was a community rallying to do whatever they could. I remember it well when Ben first went missing,
yeah,
and it was something to see. It warms your heart that there's so many nice people out there in the world.
yeah, yeah. It's overwhelming. Really, it's really a community thing. Like when something happens bad to one of the community or somebody in the community, how everybody rallies together to help, then yeah, it warms your heart. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I've always believed that Stouffville was such a great community anyway, but that just clinched it. You know, I knew for sure that. Yeah, I'm so glad that I have a business in Stouffville. I have such a great affiliation with people in Stouffville because they have been great to me. So
And now, how were you able to keep your business going through all of this? I mean, COVID's bad enough, but to have lost your son, and you've got you're a small business owner.
yeah, well, I have amazing staff, and they really they again helped me through everything. And they probably had a lot of they saw a lot with me because one day I'd be really good, and then we'd get a phone call that maybe we found him or somebody's got a clue, and then it ended up being not him, and then they'd see me be all upset again. Like I was a roller coaster of emotions in that store, and my staff held everything together for me. And another thank you goes out to them. But my store kept me busy. And even when COVID hit, we did the mandatory shutdown at the beginning, but then we reopened. And during that mandatory shutdown is when Ben was found. And if I had to have stayed home all that time from COVID, losing a son that you were trying to find, and having to stay at home, I think I would have gone stir crazy. But when I reopened the store, but not open to the public, but went back in and started working and everything, it was good for me to have that to go to and keep my mind occupied. and it helped me a lot.
Hmm.
And so yeah, um, it was good me having a business. It was good me having a business afterwards. Anyway, it was hard beforehand when we were looking for them because I'd be at the store for just part time, but pounding the pavement on the other times trying to find them. So, but I had great staff that helped me all the way through that.
Hmm. And you are fortunate that your business is working with beautiful flowers.
Yes,
There's so
yes,
much beauty in everything that you do.
yeah, yeah. I guess so. After 30 some odd years, like the baker doesn't smell fresh bread anymore and the florist doesn't smell fresh flowers anymore after 30 years. But I go into a bakery and go, oh, wouldn't this be nice to work here? And then people come in the flower shop and go, oh, it would be so nice to work here. All you do is smell flowers. I go, oh, can you smell them? I can't,
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, but it helped me get through a lot.
Yeah.
Uh,
Now, I'm going to ask you
yeah.
I have heard people say, well, this is good. Now she has closure. Now she can get on with her life. And I look at them and shake my head and I say, it's not good.
No.
How does it make you feel when someone says that to you?
Um, well, I don't get mad at them or anything because lots of times it's they don't know what to say, and maybe on the outside looking in to something, I would say maybe the same thing to somebody else if I hadn't had the experience of losing it. As I had so much hope in me to find Ben, and it kept me going and kept me searching for him and everything, and my hope was so strong. Like some days were low and some days were high, but I kept going with this hope that we're going to find him. And on March 29th, 2020, when I got the knock on the door, I lost that hope and I had no more hope. And that was really hard to deal with when for the past year I kept trying to keep that hope going.
Mhm.
And so I don't get mad at people for saying that, but at least I had the hope before, and now I've lost it. There's no hope of ever finding Ben alive. Ben's been found dead, and I'm never going to see him again. I'm never going to be able to hold him. But but it is well. Like now, I need to deal with it and live without Ben. But and we'll get through this, and it doesn't get easier. And do we miss him every day? Yes. And does it get any easier? No, definitely not. But you learn to cope and you learn to try and remember all the happy times. And that's what I always want to remember from Ben. It's the happy times, not so much the bad, but the happy times we had with Ben, because there were lots of happy times with him. So
And you will
that's what,
keep those happy times alive through his children and tell them the
yeah,
stories of Ben.
absolutely. And they miss him and they don't understand right now, but and in the future, when they have any questions, I'll gladly answer them, and I'll make sure that they know that how much they were loved from their dad, and how much he loved them. And they'll know all the good and some of the bad, maybe.
Yeah, they'll know that young man who helped the old man with his garbage.
That's right.
That's the
And he
Ben.
did the same thing with something like that in Stouffville as well. I know there was a gentleman that used to walk down the main street, and he had quite the hunched over back. And I don't know, maybe you know him because a lot of people did know him in town. But he used to go up and buy his groceries at the No Frills and walk down with his No Frills bag, all hunched over with a cane. And one time Ben was driving by, and the guy had all his food had broken through one of the bags, and he loaded up all his groceries and the man and took him home in
Oh,
his car. So like that's kind, and that's
yeah.
just genuinely kind. So that I know Ben had it in him. We didn't always see it, but he did have it in him, and that's the good stuff I choose to remember.
And that's who Ben really was.
That's who he was.
Yep.
Who he was to me. So.
Yeah, I've heard that he was a really friendly guy, just the most outgoing, gregarious guy, everybody's best friend.
He was. And then when he struggled, he needed a friend, I used to say to people, I think I saw him. He was a really nice guy. And yeah, he is a really nice guy, but he really needs a friend now, so, but, yeah, he was a good guy. It's sad. It's sad where he could have been so much more. And that was always what I hoped for him, is to get better and become a better person. And he used to say, I have to get better because of my kids. And I said, you have to get better because of you. Mm-hmm. You can't be good. You can't be any good to anybody until you're good to yourself. So, but it was just such a struggle for him.
Yep. And no one can do it for them. The addict has to do it themselves. And it's quite a conundrum, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes.
Yeah. Well, Kim, I really, really wish that we were doing a whole different show.
I do too. But I thank you, Brenda, for everything that you did to keep his search alive, and also for having me talk and pour out my heart and say goodbye to my son. I thank you for everything you did. Thank you, Brenda.
Oh, you're so welcome. We're so privileged that you shared with us everything that you've gone through. I think it really helps other parents who may be in the same situation to hear your words of encouragement and your words of kindness. If you had to say to another parent who's lost their child and they can't find them, what would you say to them?
I would say never give up hope, because there's always hope there, and you can. I hope their end results will be better than mine, and there are good endings. So please keep your hope going. Never give up. So to find them. But I also want to say that, like, drugs don't discriminate. There's not one type of family or one sort of bracket of income or anything like that drugs choose to attack. It's everybody. And if there's people out there that think this could never happen to them, they're wrong, because it can happen to anybody. And it does happen to a lot of people all over, whether you're rich or poor, from one good side of the town or from the bad side of the town. It can happen to anybody. And so just hold your kids tight, because it could happen to you. So,
yeah. Well, again, thank you so much for sharing your story with us, Kim. I wish you all the best. I wish your family all of the best. And Godspeed to Ben.
Thank you so much, Brenda. Thank you.
You've been listening to Fresh Waves. I'm your host, Bren Masson. Fresh Waves podcasts can be heard anytime you like on freshwaves.ca, or subscribe to our YouTube channel, Fresh Waves, capital R for radio. And we air on 102.9 whistlefm.com every Saturday morning at 7 a.m. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you again next time on Fresh Waves.